You drop a worm into the darkest part of a perfect-looking fallen tree, make the cast 3 more times, and still get nothing. The surprise is that the best-looking part of the tree may give a bass the fewest reasons to stay there. Find the branch that reaches better water, faces passing food, and gives your lure a clean way through, and you'll know where to cast, and when to leave. Picture that tree in a small cove. There's a dark pocket beside the trunk, a web of branches farther out, and one thin branch reaching toward deeper water. Which one gets your first cast? Most beginners choose the dark pocket. It has shade, thick wood, and all the ingredients that look fishy from above. But before we're done, you're going to trace one cast past that thin outside branch, through the exact space a bass could use to strike, and safely out toward open water. That complete path matters more than another perfect cast into the wrong pocket. For now, though, you cast beside the trunk. The worm sinks through the shade. You lift it, let it settle, and wait. Nothing. So you cast closer, then slower. Maybe you change colors. Still nothing. Those casts might be accurate. They might also be testing the same poor piece of water over and over. Forget the visible branches for a moment and picture the bottom underneath them. The tree fell from a broad, gently sloping bank. Beside the trunk, the water may be only a foot or two deep. The pocket ends against the shoreline, and much of its open space is packed with wood. Could a bass get in there? Sure, under the right conditions. But the size of the tree doesn't tell you how useful that pocket is. A fish there may have little open room to feed and a longer trip to reach deeper water. Follow the branches away from shore instead. One small outside branch may cross the spot where the bottom starts falling into the cove. There's less shade there and much less wood, but the water around it gives a bass more options. The fish can sit close to the branch, rush a short distance into open water for food, and slide toward greater depth without crossing the whole shallow pocket. That little branch connects hiding space, feeding room, and an easier escape route. That's the first big shift. Don't judge only the object. Judge the water touching it. Deeper water doesn't have to mean the deepest water in the lake. You're looking for a nearby change, a steeper slope, the side of an old creek channel, the edge of a boat lane, or any drop that gives the fish somewhere else to move. You can often make a good guess before you cast. A steep bank usually keeps falling more sharply below the surface. A broad, flat bank often stays shallow farther out. Watch where the branches disappear, where the bottom changes color, or where the outside posts of a nearby dock look much longer than the posts near shore. Then, let your lure check your guess. Cast a weighted worm into open water beside the inside of the tree. Make another cast beside the outside branches. Notice how long the worm falls before your line relaxes. You don't need to know the exact depth. You just need to notice that the worm reaches bottom much sooner on one side. Around branches, a Texas rig is a practical choice. That's a soft plastic worm with the hook point tucked back into the worm so it's less likely to snag, usually with a bullet-shaped sinker on the line in front of it. Cast beside the outside branch and let the worm fall while keeping light contact with the line. You want to feel a sudden jump or see the line move sideways, but don't pull it tight right away. Too much tension makes the worm swing away from the branch before it reaches the deeper water beside it. The 3 targets already have a new ranking. The big trunk pocket looked like the obvious winner. Now that thin outside branch is the better starting point because it touches more useful water. But that only explains where a bass could be. It doesn't explain why one would wait there right now. Come back to the same cove on a calm morning. The surface is flat, leaves and foam barely move. The outside branch still reaches the drop, but there's no clear sign that food is traveling past it. Shade can help hide a fish. Shade can't deliver a meal by itself. Then a light wind begins pushing into the cove. Ripples reach the deeper face of the tree. Bits of floating debris drift toward the outside branches instead of collecting in the dead water beside the trunk. Small bait fish may also move with that water or gather where it pushes food toward cover. You won't always see bait fish, so use the clues you do have. Watch the ripples, leaves, foam, or steady current. Which face of the tree is receiving that movement? Does the moving water pass through enough depth for a bass to use comfortably? Now the best target gets smaller again. It isn't the whole outside of the tree, it's the branch where deeper water, some concealment, and likely food movement meet. A bass can stay partly hidden beside that branch and watch the open lane in front of it. Food can pass within a short burst, and the fish can turn back toward the wood or slip toward the nearby drop. That's far more useful than simply being somewhere in a large patch of shade. Steady current can make the position easier to read. A bass is more likely to face into the moving water or wait beside the strongest flow, where food can arrive without the fish fighting the current every second. Your lure needs to pass the front or open side of that possible position, not sneak by behind the fish. Wind isn't as tidy. It may create useful movement on one face of the tree, but it can also muddy very shallow water or make a quiet, accurate cast harder. So wind is a clue, not a promise. The useful question is whether that movement may carry food through a place a bass can reach and use. This is why great-looking cover can seem dead 1 hour and productive later. The tree hasn't changed. The likely route of the food has. That quiet outside edge may suddenly give a bass a reason to wait, while the giant dark pocket remains a shallow dead end. You can see the same choice around a dock. A huge patch of shade near shore might cover flat, shallow water. One outside post may stand beside a deeper boat lane where small fish pass. The post has less shade, but it puts hiding space beside food, open striking room, and an easy route to deeper water. Grass works the same way. A long, even wall of underwater grass offers plenty of hiding space, but no particular place stands out. A point, indentation, or opening creates a corner where a hidden bass can sit beside a clear lane. Size catches your eye. A useful edge gives the fish a job to do. Back at the fallen tree, the food-facing outside branch now looks like the best spot, and you can still cast to it several times without getting a bite because choosing the right branch is only half the problem. Imagine a bass tucked just behind it, facing the incoming water. The branch breaks up the fish's outline. Open water is directly in front of it, and the drop is nearby. The bass doesn't need to chase through the tree. It can burst into the open lane, grab something, and turn back. Your first cast lands right on the branch with a hard splash. The worm falls between two limbs on the shoreline side and hangs there. You hit the cover, but the lure never passed the space where that fish could strike. The second cast stays well clear of the branches. It moves cleanly through open water several feet away. It won't snag, but now you're asking the bass to leave its hiding place and chase farther than necessary. A very active fish might. A less active one may simply watch it go. The better cast starts with your feet, not your lure box. Move a few steps along the bank or shift the boat until pulling the line will bring the worm beside the branch and then away from it. Cast beyond the outer end, let the worm settle, and guide it through the narrow lane between the wood and open water. Now it approaches from the side the fish is likely watching. It comes close enough for a short strike, passes the hiding spot, and keeps moving toward clear, deeper water. If a fish follows instead of biting at once, there's still room for it to keep following. That angle also gives you a better chance of getting the lure back. From the wrong direction, every pull drives it farther into the branches. From the better direction, it brushes the useful edge and comes free. A few steps sideways can do more than 5 lure color changes from the same spot. Before you cast, trace the whole trip with your eyes. Where will the lure land? Which side of the branch will it approach? Where could a bass leave cover and strike? Once the lure passes that spot, will it come into open water or bury itself in the tree? If you can't picture the end of the cast, you haven't found a complete route yet. Merely touching wood isn't enough. The lure has to enter useful water, pass the possible fish position, and leave without getting trapped before the important moment. Get there quietly, too. From the bank, stop several steps short of the water and study the tree before walking right beside it. From a small boat, don't drift through the open lane you're about to fish. In shallow or clear water, your shadow, footsteps, or boat may reach the target before your lure does. When you can, land beyond the likely position, instead of directly on top of it. That gives the lure time to settle and start moving before it reaches the small area that matters most. Dropping a lure straight into thick cover can work, especially when the fish are buried in it. But in a shallow, quiet cove, a heavy splash may make a difficult fish even less willing to bite. That's an exception worth remembering. Sometimes the fish really is deep in the branches. Just don't assume that because the tree looks thick. Your lure choice should match the opening and the route through it. The Texas-rigged worm fits a narrow, cluttered path because the hook point is tucked away. You can let it fall beside one branch, pause near the bottom, and ease it toward the open lane. A square bill is a shallow-running hard lure with a short, square plastic lip. It can bump a solid outside branch or dock post and suddenly change direction, which may attract a fish. But its exposed hooks can grab a dense tangle. Use it along a clean outer edge, not through several crossing limbs. A spinnerbait has flashing blades on a wire arm above one hook. It can move through scattered branches more cleanly than many lures with exposed hooks, and it's useful for covering a wind-facing edge. It still needs an opening. Throwing it into the solid middle of the tree won't fix a blocked path. There isn't one best lure for every fallen tree. The better question is simple. Which lure can enter this gap, pass close to the possible fish, and come out cleanly from the angle you have? The same tree might call for a slow worm beside a tight branch and a moving spinnerbait along the open face taking the wind. Now you're ready to test the tree without spending half the morning there. Make your first cast beside the branch that reaches the nearby drop. Let the worm fall close to the wood, pause near the bottom, and work it toward deeper water. That gives a bass using the easiest route between cover and depth a fair chance to see it. Make the next cast along the face receiving wind, current, or visible food movement. Keep the lure close enough for a fish to reach with a short burst, but don't drag it behind the branch where the fish may be less likely to notice it. Then, use the best opening. Take the angle that brings the lure beside the hidden position and out into clear water. If your lure can't pass through that gap, switch to the Texas-rigged worm or move until the angle works. A lure that hangs up before reaching the likely strike spot hasn't tested that spot. These aren't magic casts. 3 casts can't prove that no bass ever uses the tree. They do test 3 genuinely different opportunities: the nearby drop, the food-facing side, and the opening where a fish can hide beside room to strike. 10 casts into the same dark pocket don't give you 10 times as much information. If every cast follows the same poor route, you're just repeating the same guess with better accuracy. Another cast makes sense when something meaningful changes. Maybe you find an angle that keeps the lure beside the branch longer. Maybe a worm can pause in an opening that a faster lure rushed past. Maybe the wind starts pushing food toward the cove. Those changes give a bass a different chance to see or catch the lure. Changing only the color while using the same blocked route usually doesn't. Neither does casting deeper into the branches when the useful spot is on their outside face. If you've reached the best water with clean casts and nothing happens, leave. You're not declaring the tree empty forever. You're deciding that the next piece of cover is a better use of the next few minutes. That's how you keep one beautiful tree from stealing half your fishing time just because it looks too good to abandon. So return to the 3 spots you saw at the start. The dark pocket has the most shade and wood, but it's extremely shallow, closed against the bank, and outside the moving food route. The scattered outer branches reach better water, but only one touches the nearby drop and faces the wind-driven lane. That thin branch gets the cast. You move sideways until your line won't pull the worm into the wood. You cast beyond the tip, let the Texas-rigged worm fall beside it, and guide the lure through the open side. It passes the hidden spot, starts moving toward deeper water, and your line suddenly jumps. The earlier cast didn't fail because you missed the tree. They reached the most impressive part of it perfectly, the part that gave a bass fewer reasons to wait and fewer chances to take your lure. When perfect-looking bass cover gives you no bites, choose the part connected to better water first, the face receiving food movement second, and a clean path for your lure third. Give that spot a few purposeful casts. If nothing happens, leave the perfect-looking cover behind.